Okay, let's watch.
Question that I know a number of VTubers have,
Yeah.
and Giga, you might not want to be the one to ask this question, or you might, but
Okay.
I will go ahead and ask the question that I know many
Mhm.
VTubers have, and then answer it because I know it's one that's on many VTubers' mind. Is the whole question about our enforcement guidelines, and when we publish the enforcement guidelines, the attire guidelines, and in particular the comparison to VRChat. Okay,
Yes,
and in
I
terms
was
of
gonna
what our
ask.
guidelines are. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good. Well, why you can feel free to add. Why don't you go ahead and
Yeah.
ask? But I wanted to go ahead and ask the way you would ask it then.
Of course, I think. I mean, I was definitely going to say it nicely because I think a lot of it comes from just confusion, people not being sure what the guidelines are, who they apply to. Maybe they're
I don't
looking
know
for
if
more
you
clarity.
guys are able to read this, but this is the Twitch CEO. This is head of community, and this is Giga. She's a VTuber from VShoujo. So they had this quick interview together. Hello, Roderick.
Some people are just complaining, some people are more validly complaining. You know, there's a lot of different ranges on that. But overall, a lot of VTubers are confused about the outfit policy. They'll think maybe it means one thing, and then they get their model made, which, you know, takes like 6 months to a year sometimes. And then they debut it that day, and then they're told that's not allowed actually. Right. Okay. So there's a lot of uncertainty on what is and isn't allowed. And then why, like you said, why can a VRChat avatar look a certain way, but then this person who's using a model that they also use in VRChat not allowed to stream a video game with that or chatting, that sort of thing?
Yeah. First, let me, and I think this is a good question. In fact, some of this I'll also throw out there is because you highlight one of the problems that exist here that doesn't happen in the real world that I'd love for us to find a better solution for. So first of all, when we published the enforcement guidelines, there was no change to our policy. In fact, part of what we were trying to do was sometimes people have to implicitly figure out what the policy is by talking to people that haven't.
When I started streaming, I was very worried about the TOS. So I listed the part that spoke about attire and stuff. I went to read because I've always been making art. Especially when I started streaming, I was making art for Patreon. So I went to read that. So at least since when I started streaming, it was like that. So he's right.
Enforcements, and what we were trying to do was to be clear about how we were, and we didn't change how we were enforcing it all around then. But of course, as we do it, that also then brings more attention to something that was already happening in terms of enforcements. Okay, but we didn't change anything with the enforcement guidelines. Now, our general policy is that we apply the same attire guidelines to a VTuber as we do to a person in terms of the clothing that they have on their body, in terms of covering their hips and everything else. And now I'm not going to go into talking through the nuances of the attire policy for humans because first of all, I'm not the expert on all the nuances of enforcing the attire policy on humans. It's also something that is nuanced and you have to be very careful on, and we've tried to communicate what is our attire policy for humans. And so the same thing applies to VTubers. Now, the big question is, well, wait, why is that when you don't have the same policy with VRChat? And then, in fact, shouldn't VTubing just be like VRChat? And I understand why VTubers avoid. That seems unfair. They can have that, avatar in VRChat, but I can't have it as I'm a VTuber. The reason for the difference is, and you highlighted earlier about how VTubers do everything on our site. VRChat, if VRChat is a game and VRChat has a rating in the game, and when people go to VRChat, they have certain expectations about the type of content that they are going to be exposed to in terms of the avatars that they may see. Now, of course, VRChat is just an environment, and VRChat can all be lollipops and bubblegum and unicorns, or VRChat can be, less attire for their avatars and all sorts of things. However, it is the fact that much of especially since when you're in VRChat, you have no idea who you might run into. It's certainly the case that as you go and watch somebody streaming in VRChat, you've learned a given expectation about what you might see in terms of VRChat. And we, of course, use the game ratings and other things to make sure that users are aware of that. That is not the case with a VTuber, because a VTuber can play Minecraft, right? A VTuber can do anything. And so there, when you have less attire, for some people, they might find that may not be what they are looking for when they are going into a Minecraft stream. And especially given we have people of all ages, it's not just an age thing, but it is the fact that we have people of all ages, not of all ages, of 13 and above on Twitch. And you do want to think differently when somebody's under 18. But there's also lots of users of all sorts of ages. That's like, no, that's just not what I want to be exposed to in terms of, I'll say less attire. And so that's the reason we kind of need to treat VTubing different than VRChat because of the very nature of it. And interestingly in this, I think these lines are going to continue to blur where more and more in gaming, you're going to have control over your avatar in gaming. Okay. And you'll have more and more expressibility. In GTA 6, Lord knows what you'll be able to do in your avatar in
It's
GTA 6.
going to question those things. And we might have to continue to adapt our policy to see how things go. But that is where we're currently standing with it, which is your VR model, we are comparing to a person because like a person, which you are, you can change games, you can change categories, you can do all these different things. But when you're in a game, that's a game model. So we consider them separate.
So can I ask two follow-up questions on that? Because
up till here, it might sound a little bit weird, but you can see the reasoning. It makes sense. Up until here. So let's continue watching.
I get what you're saying, Dan. Completely agree, right? Because at least when you're playing,
I'm very happy that it was Giga talking to them, because I feel like she asked good questions. She asked
in
the
certain
right
games,
questions.
you have certain labeling and things, which I assume has a lot to do with advertisers and a lot of these other things, just knowing, what's going on the platform. Let's say, now I don't do this, you can see I'm covered head to toe, but let's say I wanted to get an outfit that was more revealing. I know, for example, I can go into the pools, beaches, hot tubs category and show it off there. What if I wanted to just be like that all the time? Could I, in the future, maybe consider having some sort of label or content classification that lets me do that, so that let's say people want to filter that out and it's not fully adult content, for example, but I know the nature of this outfit is what it is and I want to just click a button and say, I want to do anything and be in any category doing this, but I'm not trying to be shown to, the minors that might be on the site. Would there be a way to kind of meet in the middle there?
Here is the part where you will hear what they say. So what she asked makes so much sense. Just like this sexual content label that we have now. So what she suggested could be maybe a new label, just like this sexual one, that it just is mildly suggestive instead of full-on sexual. And see what
I think so. By the way, you talked about the two different ways of doing this. One is labeling and the other is a category.
Yes.
Those have different pros and cons, and sometimes we do both, right? In other words, so for example, with the attire exception, right, for a human, you need to be in the hot tubs category, and that is applied. And now some people may not want to be in the hot tubs category, but they want to use the attire exception. And it's like, no, sorry, if you want to use the attire exception, you need to be in the hot tub category. And it's not just labeling it, okay? The tricky, by the way, and I think thinking of something like that is certainly something that we can be thinking of and are, and trying to figure out how to handle this. One of the challenges that we face is, as we do certain things, sometimes people find ways to exploit it to an extreme. And the best example is when we made the change in terms of drawing and allow to use the human figure, and then art suddenly became dominated with a certain amount of content. And
okay, he's right about what he just said, but also he's not fully answering the question. So instead of focusing on what he was asked, he's going on a tangent, because she asked, okay, what about making a new labels? And he's talking about how when they did the change for the art category, then people started drawing porn. That was wrong, of course. People were misusing. For example, they said, basically the change that they did back then was so that you could use maybe nude reference, so not sexual, like an artistic nude. And instead, people started streaming them drawing like a hentai with the sexual stuff in it. And he's right to say that people did that wrongfully, but he's also not answering the question that he was asked.
I'll tell you the thing that in general doesn't work great on Twitch is what I will call hybrid categories that have two very different use cases. And ASMR is an example of one such category. That ASMR has like two very different communities that kind of use ASMR and an audience that is different, but it's all within one category. Okay. So that's my one hesitancy about just labeling, because then it can create certain categories might become where 50% of the content in that category is labeled, and now you create what is a hybrid category in terms of the audience that it's serving. Whereas hot tubs, it's better because if you
what's the problem with that? That's literally what it will be. I think that's literally what would be the point. Like he's saying that the result of this creating inside of the category a distinction, he's saying that's a problem. I'm trying to understand what's the problem, because isn't that what we are trying to do in the first place?
Take hot tubs versus ASMR. Hot tubs is not as much of a hybrid category because there are not a lot of people that are just streaming in hot tubs just because they happen to be hanging out in a hot tub and that's what they're just doing for the day. But I think that idea
like
is definitely
managing expectations, really, is what you're pointing out, right? Like, just that makes sense to me.
Yeah. And here's
we also just have like a world of like gamers, and
that's a very directive answer. Technically, a CEO cannot say we are going to limit something because of TOS and contracts. You cannot take away something that was available previously. Big example, a boss cannot lower your salary, no matter the reason. But it will not be taking away anything. It will literally just be adding another label, because we already have labels. He's speaking as if we don't have labels already. Right now, I can put on my stream content label sexual themes, for example. The only problem with that, and it's why I'm not using it, is that is not correct for me. I'm not doing something sexual. So I feel like if they just made another better labels, will be better. We have labels for sorting, but what Giga asked was labels for limiting. Wouldn't the current labels already limit? Like, if I have my stream labeled right now as a sexual themes, maybe there should be a way so that, let's say I have a kid and they are 14 and they want to watch streamers that play Minecraft. I would want a button somewhere in the site where I can click it, and by clicking it, all of the streams that are labeled as sexual themes disappear. Because if that's not the case, what's the point of the label then? That it already exists. Because I can click the label and it will show me all the sexual theme, the streams that have the label. That's why it's a sorting label. So right now, if I turn sexual themes label on, because I can do that, and I start working on this VTuber model that I'm working on right now without her top off, I can stream that, and it's only so people can sort, but it doesn't hide. People don't have a way to hide this sexual content that they don't want to see. So why am I getting banned for it if we are not giving a way to people to filter that off? You know? It feels like it doesn't make any sense. That's the thing. Right now, there's no way to filter out something, just to filter for something, right? So they're basically just giving a way for me to look for the sexual content streams, but not filter them out. So at this point, we should either like ban all of the sexual content, banned, no one can do this, or we have a label that we have right now. So the label is there, but we make it so that the label can be used to hide other than just to search. We have the current setting. Hide the content with the content classification labels. Control how content labeled with the content classification labels is displayed across Twitch. So you can hide all of them, regardless if it's sexual, if it's what does it say? Politics, drugs. You just have to delete all of that. The bans are done before reviewing the facts, so they shoot first and investigate later. Pretty American, I might add. I don't know about that. Honestly, the only problem that I might have, I'm looking at what I am doing specifically. Like, I'm making this VTuber model. There's boobs. Okay. Maybe I'm animating this. So it is bannable to have a zoom on parts like a chest, like butts, like sexual parts. But if I'm animating this and I'm working on it, right? I'm just doing whatever I have to do. I'm making the body angles. Okay. Why is this sexual labeled? Am I making sexual content right now? That's why I'm saying if I had a suggestive label to split, mature, whatever you want to call it, 18 plus, it feels like we either have content for kids or we either have porn. Why isn't there adult but not porn? All right? We all become naked and horny as soon as we turn 18. The fuck? There's no in between. What? Are you 18? Sex! Right now! They rather have accidental access to no minor content than to hide it from massive amount of non-registered viewers. Yeah, that's why what they are saying would be right if there weren't exceptions. For example, he's saying, we consider VTuber as the same as humans, but we saw that they don't. So this is already a problem that I can find. And then he says, if we added labels, we would create like a hybrid category. But there are labels already. So what would be logical answers from him are being invalidated by some pre-existing facts that make these answers not so, they don't have so much sense anymore. Showing your work is not sexual, but some fuckheads think the existence of women is inherently sexual. So just showing skin equals to porn. It's stupid and juvenile. Let's continue. Otherwise, we're just gonna rant about this without ever finishing.
And they're min-maxing, understandably, what we put out there because they are looking for ways to still express themselves but stay within our terms of service. I get that. Generally, what we want to try to avoid, though, is having such specificity in our rules that people are looking for ways to circumvent them, as opposed to what we really want, which is make sure that when you are expressing what you want to do, that your audience knows what they're in for. Don't tell me that you're Sailor Moon when you're gushing.
Yeah, this is exactly what I'm saying. I want people to be able to know what I'm doing even before I start streaming. I don't want to put the sexual content label on my stream Because you, right now, you're watching my stream. If you were to go on Twitch, would you like open it and be like, let's see who's making sexual content today? Maybe you don't want to see sexual content, and I'm not making sexual content. But if I put sexual content label on my stream, you will never see it. Instead, if I had maybe a mature label in between, maybe you might think, oh, it's fine, I don't want to see sex on Twitch. But if I see some cleavage, some little bit suggestive art, is fine. Right? Take it like this. Imagine you have a store and you make these amazing shoes. These shoes are the coolest shoes you have ever seen. But seeing the shoes means that there might be people willing to steal them. But also means that someone might enter the store and buy the shoes. Will you show or hide the shoes from the front? This is the duality that I'm not liking. Why hide or show only? Let's say that the shoes cost a lot. So you say, no one can afford the shoes cost 200 euros. Just saying. No one can afford these shoes, so I will put them away because no one can buy. No, put them in a different room so that the people that might want to watch that, they can go and watch it. I feel like, maybe I'm stupid. I feel like just a different, more labels will do the job. I stream. But if I open Twitch on a day that I don't stream and I want to watch streams, I also wouldn't want to watch a porn on Twitch because if I want to watch porn, I don't go on Twitch. So I would want to filter out the porn. But for me, it's fine to see maybe some VTuber cleavage, some artistic mature content. That's fine, right? I want more labels because there's too much distance between sexual content, kid-friendly content. There is this huge distance that they are keeping, and they are not even placing a precise split where this ends and this starts. They're gonna...
Okay.
I skipped a little bit by mistake. Because as a seller, I have to make a new room for the cool expensive shoes, and for the buyer means I have to go to another place to get the shoes. Would you hate it so much if when you go to the Twitch home, you have just the two sliders that say suggestive content and sexual content, and you can toggle them on and off? Honestly, I would love it.
To still express themselves but stay within our terms of service. I get that. Generally, what we want to try to avoid, though, is having such specificity in our rules that people are looking for ways to circumvent them, as opposed to what we really want, which is make sure that when you are expressing what you want to do, that your audience knows what they're in for. Don't tell me that you're Sailor Moon when you're gushing over magical girls. We can tell.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And by the way, that goes...
Yes, but why is either that? Why is it only black or only white? Why isn't that a gray? That is a gray. Cazzo. I'm getting...
in general, whenever you have something that is sort of a little bit subjective in terms of the line, this is one thing that I see in chat a lot, thinking, oh, it's inconsistent. Okay. Well, another way to talk about consistency, suppose I had a black piece of paper and a white piece of paper, and I asked 100 people, is it black or white? Everyone will give me the same answers. Now, suppose I had chartreuse versus pick another color that is very close to chartreuse that many people may not really fully have a model of violet versus purple, right? Which are two different colors. To be honest, I can't tell you the difference between violet versus purple. And if I asked a bunch of people, is it violet or purple? That in fact, you'd have a lot of people that get it wrong. And that's because the difference between violet and purple is very small, okay? And especially as you start talking about these things in terms of attire, sexual content, that sort of thing, it can be very subjective. And so in fact, as people try to move up to the boundary to get something as purple as possible, but still be violet, okay, let's assume for a second, purple's not allowed, but violet is. But they want to be as close to purple without being it. You're going to have a lot of people that are going to call it purple, and then you're going to have some purple stuff that the rater's going to call violet, because it is not.
I don't think this is the problem that we have, because I agree that there are some people that are just playing with the limits. Like when there is the rule that you cannot show naked boobs, but then there's this streamer that has a green screen on their boobs, so technically they're not showing them, but they are actually naked. You know, this sort of like little gimmicks. I agree what he's saying. These people are playing with the limits. This is wrong. I agree with that. But there are some cases where like people are getting banned for literally something that clearly I can understand that is not sexual. There's not that much of a doubt.
Clear. And so what then ends up happening is you can find examples. Look, here's this vibe.
There are a lot of examples of pretty much sexual, the soft porn that there is right now on Twitch. That one as well, there is not this big doubt between purple and violet. There is not much of a doubt. It is what it is, because we know, we even call it like a soft porn, but it's there. So there can be cases where you're like, oh, is this too much, too little? Okay. But those, I don't think those are the majority.
Violet thing, and they said it was purple, but this person was purple and they said it was violet. Oh my gosh. Okay. And the answer is that is the nature of this problem when you have highly subjective things, whereas in other areas, it's not highly subjective. Frequently.
As an artist, you have a greater palette to explore with how mature you get with your content. It's not that easy for in real life streamers to go between black and white. Yes, I think this is why the problem came up with VTubers and artists, because maybe I am animating a VTuber model and I'm zooming on the VTuber model chest because I'm animating it, because I'm drawing it. And that's the reason. But if you're a real person and you're zooming on your chest, what would be the reason other than making sexually suggestive content, right? So I understand that this is a new problem that came up mostly because there's more art, because VTuber models are art, more art on Twitch than there used to be.
In terms of, hate speech, it's pretty clear this person said this like horrendous thing.
Right.
And so I encourage people, if you're trying to get as close to the line without going over the line, and then sometimes you get caught for going over the line when technically you can say, but I wasn't over the line, and this person, I'm like,
and this
stop.
is very annoying. I hate it so much also when people start trying over the line, because it makes it harder for those that are trying to how can I say this? When people try to go over the line, then it looks like every time that someone does that, then the TOS gets more strict. Or not even more strict. It gets added more stuff that adds even more to the doubt, because they add more rules, but they are even more vague. So there's another variable that you don't know what the hell to do about.
trying to live so close to the line.
Mhm.
Okay. Now, you did highlight a problem that VTubing has that does not happen in people, is if somebody is figuring out their attire and they find out because they get a warning about their attire, well, they put on a different top tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's easy. Okay. For VTubers, since it takes time to spend to get your model and get the attire for your model and all that, it's like, well, shoot, I just spent a fair amount of money on this. Okay.
Mhm.
And I wish I would have known this in advance. I wouldn't have spent the money. I would love if we had some way to kind of help with 2D models or other things, kind of make an assessment, and that may also be the type of thing that maybe VTubers help us with this, right? That in fact, you would get a group of VTubers that, we work with, and then maybe something happens that in the VTuber Creator Club is VTubers, like, you can almost be like, it's borderline. And if it's borderline,
I was actually going to suggest that in the Creator Club. Yeah.
So we actually do that in our ambassador group, and we have VTubers that represent the ambassador selection. There's going to be more about this soon, but we really want to utilize our ambassadors as a way to help us get perspective from various creators. And ambassadors are meant to get sources because nobody's a monolith. So our ambassadors absolutely should be going to the creator clubs, getting broad understandings of like what those intricacies are, and then bringing that to us so that we can make better decisions for trust and safety. So we are absolutely doing that. I'm sorry. I wish I could like unveil this right now, but I can't.
It would be very helpful if they did this. At least I can get a sketch from my artist, send it to maybe a Twitch mod and say, is this fine? But then at that point, if they say, yes, that is right, then it must be right. And I think they are not gonna do this, because since they are keeping the TOS so vague, how can a Twitch mod confidently tell you that this is right, yes, this is right, or this is not? So I don't think they will do this. It would be very nice if they did it, though. I think the thing that should be a thing is that instead of you being automatically banned, it should be an automated warning to the streamer where they tell them, hey, you're doing this and this against X rule, please stop or we will ban you. That way, they know what the bot says, it's a ban reason, and the streamer can be aware and they can get banned. I think that already happens, but one problem might be that you don't fully know what's the cause of the ban. Especially if you are not actively trying to tiptoe just at the border. You might not fully know. Like if there was some sort of quick chat, like what they just said, quick help chat where you could ask for clarifications, that would be better. This is a problem in general, I think, with Twitch, also with not attire, but other bans happening, is that when you get banned, you don't get precisely told why. So sometimes it might be clear what happened, sometimes it might not. What can I say? This is a very complex topic. We have our point of view, they have their point of view. Every extra support, extra labels that we ask for, it's extra work for them. At the same time, we are the users, so we have our part of rights to ask for improvements if the developing of streaming ways and methods change. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense that every streamer gives a cut, right, to Twitch every month. So I feel like this needs to be discussed more. I'm very happy that this is happening. Giga has been talking to them. She asked very good questions. I would love to see more coming out of this. I feel like we have these problems and these topics and that were brought up in this video, but the answers that were given were more like, we know this is a problem, but it's difficult to solve, basically. So they provided explanations in this video, but not really solutions. And it's because it's hard, probably getting a question like this asked suddenly, and it's stuff that needs to be discussed. They need to work on finding a solution, but I hope that they do try. Maybe I think that a label could solve the solution. But maybe they, since they are probably expert, much more than I can be, in managing a site, maybe they can come up with a good solution. But I hope that they end up working on this and at least try to find a solution instead of just brushing it off as we're gonna keep it vague, it's too complicated to solve, so we're just not gonna care about it. And I hope that them receiving these type of questions at least puts a little seed in their brain to have them think, oh, so this is a problem that people are having, so maybe we should get to work and try to find a solution. Honestly, if they wanted to do something about it, there are a lot of ways to fix the Twitch ban problems, but I guess they don't really care as much. Yeah. This is something, this is basically what I just said. I think I don't want to paint it as if they don't care. Maybe they just didn't realize how big of a problem is for us, you know? I'm trying to understand their perspective as well. It's great to see how knowledgeable you are on this topic, Yoshi. 𝐋𝐈𝐍𝐿𝐒, I'm not knowledgeable at all. That's why I wanted to watch this video with you and to talk to you. Because I feel like I stand on my side from my perspective, but I want to see and know what others think so that I can expand my opinion about this.